Deputy First Minister Martin, you're very welcome.
Well, G. August to Falcherove, can I say first of all thanks to Stephen and to Anne for the invitation to be with you here for the Chamber lunch today. Delighted to be here with ministerial colleagues, Jonathan Bell, our new Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Investment. Very important to get that registered up there, Johnny. And David Ford, our Justice Minister, and Mark Hitch, our Environment Minister. And delighted also to see our Chief Constable, George Hamilton, and US Consul General, Greg Burton, great friend. And wonderful also to see the Webb Ellis Trophy as I come up the stairs. I wondered, had Alvina got her photograph taken with it? We'll have to sort that out before too long. But it is a real delight to be here, and I'm very conscious that we do so against the backdrop of the terrible sadness that there is on the island of Ireland over what happened in California and the deaths of 6 young people out there on J1 visas and the very serious injuries to others. It was a shocking event, and we're all still reeling from it, and obviously very keen to extend our sympathy and condolences to those who have lost their children, and best wishes to all those families who are praying for a recovery for those who are critically injured. And if there wasn't enough sadness that we've just had over the course of the last 24 hours, a despicable attempt to kill a police officer near to my own city at Eglinton. A totally futile act, but obviously a very determined attempt to kill a police officer, and it has to be roundly condemned by all of us. And when something like that happens and people hear it on the news, it just seems like something from a different era. And it does make people sit up and take notice, and I hope also make people not take the peace process for granted, but they recognise that there are still people out there who are determined to drag down everything that we have built up over the course of the last 20 years. So on my own behalf, I want through George to send our best wishes to the police officer and his family, who are obviously dealing with the fallout from all of this, which no doubt for them will be considerable. It's great to be here with AP, Tony, Anthony, as his mommy calls him. But we're very proud of Tony McCoy. For Tony, and I'd be as interested as anybody else to hear his question and answer later, to come from a very small place like Moneyglass and reach the heights of National Hunt racing and become the greatest jockey that the world has ever seen, 20 times running, is absolutely fantastic. So we are very proud of you, and we're very proud of the ambassadorial role that you take on behalf of all of us, because nobody anywhere on the planet will know that you don't come from anywhere other than here. I enjoyed Stephen's speech, particularly the part where he talked about the tunnel from Larne to Scotland. Tony lives in Moneyglass. I live in Derry. We'd be very glad to see the A6 and the A5 built before that tunnel's built. I want to applaud the work of the Chamber. Belfast is a fantastic city, and if you look at Belfast now to the Belfast of 20 years ago, there is absolutely no comparison. And everybody that comes here can see the tremendous change that has taken place, all down to the citizens of the city and those who have bought into the peace process and who recognise the value of all of that as we continue to move forward. And the business community have played their part. And I want to applaud all of your efforts in working with us and working with the community to ensure that we continue, in spite of all the challenges and difficulties, to move forward to make this a better place. Stephen challenged us all to think about what life would be like technologically in 10 years' time. Well, God knows what it'll be like, given the pace of change over the course of the last 10 or 15 years. But also, when we think about how things have improved here, where we will be 10 years from now will be even a far better place than where we're at the moment, if we continue along the path that we have chosen. And the Chamber of Commerce is a formidable force in all of that, particularly in terms of bringing businesses together and working towards a common goal. So we all want to grow the economy, we all want to create jobs and to build a sustainable economic recovery. And of course, enterprise is the backbone of the local economy, and for that very reason is at the heart of our programme for government. And I am determined to work with you and all my executive colleagues to create a pro-business environment. Peter Robinson and I, we sing from the same hymn sheet in relation to all of that, and we're sorry that he isn't here today, but we're glad that he's making a steady recovery and will very soon be returned to full health. So we wish him and his family all the best after what was a very traumatic event in his life just a few short weeks ago. The latest figures suggest that private sector grew by around 2% over the past year, with growth, and yesterday's labour market figures were positive, with jobs growth over the last quarter strongest in the construction sector, which obviously was one of the most worrying aspects of our development situation over the last couple of years. So there are some signs of green shoots in the recovery. More businesses are reporting an increase in domestic orders and recruitment intentions. The number of employee jobs has increased over the most recent quarter and year. The claimant count has fallen for 28 consecutive months. Promoting growth in the local economy while redressing deprivation and poverty has been the Executive's #1 target. In the past year alone, Invest support for businesses has helped secure nearly 14,000 new jobs, a 30% increase on the previous year. These jobs will be created across a range of industries over the coming 3 to 5 years, delivering over £300 million of salaries annually to the local economy. And while I would want to see a greater geographical spread of these new jobs so that all sections of our society can feel the benefits, I do recognise that we are making progress in attracting greater numbers of jobs to our shores. We continue to support a reduced rate of corporation tax in a scenario where the Executive can afford it. And good progress also continues to be made in the tourism sector, with an increase of 11% in the number of overnight trips in 2014. Of course, the recent Irish Open, apart from the weather, was a huge success, and it was a massive boost to our tourism sector. And although Rory didn't win the Irish Open, he certainly, through his efforts, made sure that we were all winners. And I know AP is going to speak to you later, and I can tell you that he is as handy with a golf club as he is in the saddle. At one stage out on the course when we were down there, there was a great approach shot played, and everybody thought that it was Ricky Fowler. It turned out that it was AP. So I'm sure you'll all join with me in wishing our local golfers success at this weekend's US Open at Chambers Bay in Seattle. In addition to providing support to companies to invest and innovate to improve their productive capacity, the Executive has focused on measures to reduce the cost of doing business here. The review of business red tape has put forward a series of challenging and innovative recommendations, and the Executive will consider a proposal for regulatory reform in the coming months. In terms of communications, we're continuing to make broadband services widely available via a mix of technologies, and over £56 million has been invested since 2008 to encourage private sector upgrade to networks, primarily in rural areas. As a result, we have the highest availability and take-up of superfast broadband services compared to England, Scotland and Wales. But we must not be complacent and recognise that there are areas in which access to fixed-line broadband services continues to present a challenge. By the end of 2017, we will have invested a further 15.8 million in our telecommunications infrastructure to help meet that challenge. Whilst telecommunications are important, face-to-face contact in person is often a critical requirement in successfully conducting business, as all of you well know. Improving the connectivity provided by our airports is essential to increasing our attractiveness as a business investment location, supporting businesses to export goods around the world and attracting inbound tourists. So officials are scoping the potential for an air route development fund, which would operate from 2016-17 onwards, whilst we continue to press the Treasury to reduce the rate of air passenger duty. Securing the funding required to invest and grow has been a challenge for many firms. Having a local banking sector that meets the needs of both consumers and businesses and provides bank lending on a competitive basis to local businesses is vital for economic recovery. The bank lending environment here is improving, with more businesses now accessing the finance that they need to prosper and grow. Figures show that business bank lending programs operated through private sector delivery partners have facilitated more than 40 million sterling of lending and investment to businesses here. In the short term, independent forecasters suggest the local economy will grow by 1.9% this year, compared with 2.2% for the UK and 4% for the South. So we are delivering, and you are delivering. Seeing the implementation of the Stormont House Agreement, I think, would continue that work, and that's what I want to see. The value of local political institutions is our ability to make a difference for the people that we represent. But it would be a glaring omission today if I did not address the enormous challenges that now face the executive, our devolved institutions, and our society at the widest level. We are facing into a political and financial crisis within the executive, and it's not one created by the political parties here, but a crisis that has been inflicted upon us by the economic policies of the Conservative government in Westminster. And I know that my party's concerns are shared by ministerial colleagues from all the executive parties. The previous Tory-led government stripped 1.5 billion sterling from the public service budget of the executive during their term. And they proposed to save more money at the expense of the most vulnerable under the misnomer of welfare reform. The new Tory government is planning billions of pounds of reductions in public services and welfare benefits, which I think will inflict devastating cuts on our society and on our economy. You can't take that kind of spending power out of any economy, particularly one as fragile and small as ours, and not expect there to be serious repercussions for our prospects for economic recovery. Tory plans do not take account of the unique economic characteristics of a society emerging from decades of conflict, a society still grappling with the reality of division and the resulting costs. In my opinion, austerity is wrong because it inflicts most economic pain on those who are least able to afford this burden. But I also believe that it is a misguided approach which simply does not work and is economically counterproductive. Austerity is bad for the community, bad for the economy, bad for business. So austerity and its imposition in our society is a serious challenge which the executive has to deal with in the time ahead. Of course, there are other challenges. Does anyone here believe that a British exit from the European Union would be good for business or for our economy? So there are enormous difficulties and challenges, but we have faced enormous difficulties and challenges before, and we have found a way forward. And that remains my focus. I remain absolutely determined to find solutions. And even as we grapple with these difficult issues, and while they dominate the media headlines, there has been quiet, almost unnoticed progress. Good work has been done. Peter Robinson and I and the 5 parties in the executive have been working together collectively to deliver, though you will rarely hear that being delivered by the media. We are attracting record levels of foreign direct investment. Unemployment is consistently falling. Our society has been transformed. We might not agree about everything, but conflict is well and truly a thing of the past. So we want to continue with that work. We need to continue with that work, and that remains my personal and political priority. So well done, everybody. We'll continue to work with you. Keep up the good work.